And thank you for being here for tonight's Mayor of La Crosse Candidate Forum. And we're delighted to have this opportunity to speak with this highly qualified slate of candidates that are going to be bringing their message together today. And this will be a wonderful chance for you to get to learn a lot more about their message, their role, and what they'll be bringing to the position. First off, I'd like to thank our sponsors, our media sponsors, WKBT, WXOW, Wisconsin Public Radio, the La Crosse Tribune, and the University of Wisconsin La Crosse Political Science and Public Administration Department have all been very supportive of this effort. A big shout out goes to the team at WIZM because of the things that they've been doing to pull this off. And you know, it's a tight time frame in the spring. Seems like the federal election lasts forever. And then when you get to the local elections, it's really tight. Speaking on the panel today will be Allison Fergott from WKBT, Brad Williams, WIZM, Chandler Brindley, WXOW, Hope Kerwin at Wisconsin Public Radio, and Todd Krishak from the La Crosse Tribune. And we're delighted to have this talented panel here representing the candidates. Chris Kahlow, Vicki Markussen, Ellie McLoone, and Shaundel Washington-Spivey. And so what we're going to do on this format here is we're going to have timed questions. And you see that clock running over there. That serves as a reminder. And one of the media panelists will ask a question, and then we'll work our way down the line here. And then when the second media representative speaks, we'll skip to the next person. So everyone has a chance to be first and last in this process, pretty much so. A little bit about the format. There will be 90 seconds to open up with some opening comments. And so we'll have a chance to just share your message and prepare the audience for what you're going to be bringing forward. And then when we open up the questions, we'll have a 60-second time frame. And so that's tight. But we really wanted to get a lot of information out today. It's an important election. And so we're respectfully asking for your support in helping us stay on time and move through this. And then at the end, we'll have a closing 90-second statement that you'll be able to make. So it allows you to go in and cover key points that you want to reinforce along the way. The candidate field will be narrowed on February 18th. So the 4 candidates will, following the primary election, will be narrowed down to the 2 finalists, and they will be going for the general election on April 1st. And this forum is being live streamed on WIZM. So it'd be a chance if you know somebody that isn't here that wants to see what happened here today, they would probably be able to go to the WIZM website and check out the video. So let's get started. And we're going to start out with our first question, and it will be from Allison Fergott. And
Opening
statement. All right. We're going to start out with an opening statement for sure. 90 seconds, and we're going to start here with Chris Kahlow.
All right. Thank you, Lee. Thank you, everyone, for being here. So I'd like to start by saying many people urged me to run for mayor, and La Crosse is at a crossroads. We have a lot of challenges before us, but also we have unique opportunities ahead of us. This is not the time for on-the-ground, or for, I'm sorry, I just blew that. This is not the time. I need to hit the ground running. I can be the candidate who can do that. I have expertise in local city government, as well as small business experience. And with those two and my deep commitment and involvement in the community, they make me uniquely qualified to lead La Crosse as the next mayor. I also have been on city council for 6 years, and the issues I have focused on have been the issues that mattered most to the residents that I serve. They have been issues of public safety, collaborating on homelessness and housing issues, enhancing our parks, protecting our open spaces, and also celebrating, supporting the arts and culture in our city. I'm the only candidate that has both city government experience as well as business experience that's in this race. I am the only candidate that knows really personally the struggles of small business. And Rick is pointing at me already. I'm excited to bring my knowledge and leadership to lead La Crosse as our next mayor.
Thank you. Ellie.
Thank you for having me, Lee. Thank you, everyone, for being here. So I'm Ellie McLoone. I'm a native, homegrown La Crosse. I'm fifth generation in La Crosse, so I bring a different perspective than any of the other candidates as far as the past, seeing the progress that we've made going forward to today. And more importantly, I have not been in government nor have been in non-for-profit. So I bring a different perspective, a business perspective. I have been in business throughout my whole life. Primarily, I was in the consumer packaged goods, CPG industry. I work with Fortune 500 companies. I would launch brand development, new brand products for Kimberly-Clark, Procter & Gamble, Clorox, PepsiCo, Frito-Lay. So I worked with multi-million-dollar budgets on a timeline, working within the realm of creativity, coming up with ideas to get these products out into the field. So I do have experience. I have experience in a boardroom, working with lots of different types of opinions and working to get a solution through compromise. Why I'm running for mayor? Love the city, absolutely. But more importantly, I've seen some things over the years that haven't been done with speed. Things have taken a long time to be enacted, primarily with the homeless situation. I had a friend that was out watering her flowers and somebody snuck in her home and attacked her, and that was unbelievable for her. And she ran down the stairs saying, "I got out." And that was a wake up for me as far as working on safety in our community. So I look forward to being your next mayor.
Thank you, Ellie. Shaundel.
Thank you for having me. I am so excited to be here today and also to be here at my alma mater. It's always a great experience when I'm able to come back to UWL and visit. It brings up a lot of memories for me. And I'm also excited that we are doing this here in the 5th District, since you all have not been represented for almost a year now on City Council. And so I'm really glad that we're able to have this and you're able to see the candidates and hear our responses to the various questions that many of you have. I really just want to point out the fact that my administration has really been built on bringing the community together, right? Collectively, how can we work to solve some of the tough issues that we have, see the opportunities that we have in our community, and really grow together? Ultimately, making sure that we're cultivating a La Crosse where everybody belongs. And as mayor, I ensure that my administration will make sure that we're working alongside our private organizations, our small businesses, to ensure that La Crosse is a place that everyone feels valued, respected, appreciated, have the resources equitably to be able to access what they need in order to be able to thrive and succeed in this city. So I'm Shaundel Washington-Spivey. Please consider me as your next mayor on April 1st. Thank you.
And Vicki.
Hello, I am Vicki Markussen. I am here. Everybody wants to know your why, right? What would make you run for mayor? And I guess I go back to my upbringing. So what a lot of people don't know about me is I was that kid. I was the one with free lunch. I was the one whose parents paid with food stamps. They'd rip them out of their booklet when they would go to the grocery store. I was the one that firefighters graciously brought me, our family, Thanksgiving dinner. And so I was that kid. And then when I was a freshman in high school, my dad passed away from cancer. And all of those pieces created this amazing thing called a Pell Grant. And so Pell Grant and scholarships took me to UW-Madison, and it changed my life. From there, I came here with my first professional job as a TV reporter and met my husband not too long after, so that changed that career pathway. I've had the pleasure of working in housing. I've had the pleasure of working with builders and contractors and small businesses. And I've done so alongside some incredible leaders in our community and some amazing volunteers. I have learned from so many of them, and I am grateful. My husband was diagnosed with cancer about 5 years ago. This community caught us. They've taught our kids. I am grateful, and I want to take all that everyone has taught me in this community and give it back. That's why I'm running for mayor.
All right, well, thank you all. And now is an opportunity for the media questions. And Allison, you get to go first.
Thank you, Lee. A few of you mentioned this in your opening statements. Homelessness has been a hot-button issue in La Crosse. La Crosse is now entering its second year of the Pathways Home project. What's your opinion of the plan, and what would you do as mayor to make it a success?
And we're going to go with Ellie this time.
Okay. So in my announcement, I mentioned as well that homelessness, a high percentage of those that are homeless, generally a result of drug and mental health addiction. And I am going to push, I've already talked to one state rep and actually the governor to push to get a state-funded detox and mental health counseling facility on the west side of the state. The closest one is Minneapolis or Madison. And in conjunction with the Pathway Homes program, which is wonderful. I know they work with a lot of clergy in the area, and there's another program with some judges involved as well. So I think all of those together are great, along with like Karuna and working with the other outreach programs so that everyone is communicating and working together for the same goal. I think having the bridge housing that we've currently got right now and the scaled rent will be very helpful. But probably the most important aspect is when people are in a situation where they have mental health or drug issues, they need to be monitored 24/7 so that if they do have a rough patch, somebody's there to help them and get them on the straight and narrow.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Same question, Shaundel.
So I, for one, am a huge, huge advocate for the Pathways Home program. I think it is a brilliant idea and a brilliant strategy, an evidence-based strategy that brings the county, the city, nonprofits, and other private organizations together to make sure that we're working together to solve an issue that is in our community. And I got to get behind that 100%. The thing is I feel like, let me rephrase that. The issue is that sometimes folks have used these tactics of fear-mongering around the homelessness issue and about unhoused individuals. And that is actually just so incorrect, and we need to change that narrative. The reality is anybody, right, could be homeless at any given point. The reality is also that we do not have the systems set up to be able to handle this issue. And so Pathways Home is another way of being able to do that. Another idea that I really appreciate is Nearby Bike Brigade and their Dignity Home project. Another collaboration where we're saying let's house individuals, provide case management for them, and then also provide supports.
Okay, thank you, Shaundel. Same question, Vicki.
Yeah, so I support Pathways Home. It has the critical piece that was needed. So the county has the health department. They have the case managers that can do this well. It's fantastic that they have come to the table. The piece that I see, so one of my clients is the Workforce Development Board, and what I see are people that slip into homelessness. So a veteran, I can picture him right now, a veteran who lost his job, son has a disability, they are homeless and they are working homeless. And they just need a slight lift to keep them working, which is critical. And so if we're ever going to achieve the functional homelessness, the functional zero homelessness that the Pathways Home is going for, we have to be doing a better job as a community of picking up those individuals and putting them back into work and back into housing, because they just need that little lift. That's the missing piece of the Pathways Home.
All right, thank you. And Chris.
Thank you. Being council president when we approved the Pathways Home, I'm quite familiar with it and understand the amazing work that is being done. What people don't realize is the amount of time it has taken for this problem to reach a crisis that we are not going to get out of it overnight. So this Pathways Home is a 5-year plan to end homelessness in La Crosse. I would also add that what is really important is I would support, as mayor, a further collaboration for a regional approach to ending homelessness. We really need our partners, our neighbors, to work with us. The City of La Crosse is building affordable housing. We are doing the heavy lifting, but we need the support of surrounding communities because we all need to be helping each other to solve this crisis.
All right, thank you. Now we go to our second question, and we start with Brad Williams.
The city of La Crosse is run by a mayor and a council, but the idea of a city administrator is now being studied at City Hall, and it will be brought before the council this year for more discussion, maybe a vote. How do you see the ideal role of an administrator who would work, in most cases, alongside the mayor? And where do you stand on the idea if one is hired?
Okay, Shaundel, you're first up.
So this has been a back and forth thing for a lot of folks around the city administrator role. I myself have gone back and forth about the idea of like, do we really need one? Do we want one, et cetera? And I've landed on the decision of yes, we do. We want a city administrator because we want to ensure that our government, our city government, is working efficiently. I think a city administrator will also help us with being responsible with our financial management. In addition to that, one of the jobs and responsibility of mayor is to be visible into the community, right? Like working and working alongside our community members and not just leading, right? That's a part of it, but we also should be visible. And I think that by having a city administrator, it will help the mayor be more visible. When I'm knocking on doors and having conversations with people, one of their biggest things is we don't see the mayor. We don't know who the mayor is. And the reality is the job is really huge. I'm not saying I can't do it. I can do it. I've proven that in numerous of ways over the years. But the reality is that it would be really great to have some assistance by having a city administrator.
Okay. Vicki.
I have said that I support a city administrator. It goes in alignment, honestly, because I've worked in nonprofits. It's like having the executive director, right? You have that steady person who's providing that administrative day-to-day, because you'll always have a president of an organization that changes over. And so it provides that consistency. And that executive director is always, if they're doing their job really well, they are also staying accountable to who they're representing because they're guiding the president of that organization. And so what I can say, though, is in talking with people and even talking with some of the city staff, there are not clear guidelines set up yet in terms of what the city administrator would do. And I think that's a really critical piece for the public to understand, for the staff to understand before the city makes that big. And I will admit, I look at the price tag going, ooh, that's expensive. And I think there's some things that would need to get worked out before that could get implemented.
Okay, thank you, Vicki. Chris.
On the city administrator issue, I did vote on the council to postpone and create a working group of council members to make sure that we had all the right information before we made that decision. I'm very open to an administrator, and I trust my colleagues who are working really hard right now in that working group to bring something forward, and I believe it will come in May. And there are a lot of decisions. It's a tough one to make. We are going to change a charter ordinance of the city of La Crosse. It is a big decision. It shouldn't be taken lightly or quickly or in haste. And I look forward to what that working group comes forward with, knowing what the roles of the mayor might be, and making sure if we do have an administrator and a mayor, that we're not overlapping, and that we need the citizens behind us and with us on this really important decision.
All right, thanks, Chris. And Ellie, your turn.
Thank you. I agree with Chris. It is a very important decision, and I feel that it has to be completely transparent so that the board that's looking at this will give all the information to the residents and taxpayers. I also feel it should be potentially a referendum. I'm not opposed to the city administrator. It is a huge capital expense, and I would also recommend that a executive recruiter would actually evaluate anyone who brings their resumes to the table for this position so they can look at it on a neutral aspect and it won't be political, and they can make sure the person's qualified. They are beneficial. They will and can save cities money, but you have to get the right person with the qualifications, CPA, CPA, financial background, city planning, engineering, to monitor things and make sure that there is a cost saving for the city. Also have a mechanism in there that potentially they get a bonus. If they hit cost saving aspects, then they could get a bonus on top of other incentives that would trigger things for them to work for the benefit of the taxpayers.
All right, excellent. Our next question comes from Shaundel Brindley, and please go ahead.
La Crosse's drinking water is considered to be, quote, almost drinkable from the source, according to the city's water superintendent. La Crosse currently falls within the DNR's compliance standards of 70 parts per trillion. The Environmental Protection Agency announced new enforceable federal standards for PFAS in drinking water, which is 4 parts per trillion. The city's water superintendent said, speaking with me, on the high end, La Crosse uses 4.5 parts per trillion, something that will need to be addressed in the future. If elected, how do you continue to ensure a safe level of drinking water for the city of La Crosse?
And Vicki, you're up first this time.
Yeah. I mean, the beautiful thing is we have department heads that have that area of expertise, right? I am not a water expert, so you have to rely, obviously, on your staff to guide that. Everyone, of course, is concerned about the quality of our water. PFAS is something that none of us expected. We're still figuring it out, but we obviously have to get ahead of what is happening with our water in the city of La Crosse to ensure that it is safe for all to be drinking. And so, yes, PFAS is concerning. Obviously, we have a benefit of having a great river running through us. We can figure out how to utilize that if it comes down to our well contamination. And so I know that our city staff will do a great job of helping guide that, and we have to make sure that we're listening to those staff members.
Okay, thank you. Chris, what's your response?
Oh, interesting question. That's a tough one. Yeah, I would also agree. The mayor at this point is probably not well versed in PFAS. I don't know that anyone in this room is. We do have staff that do the monitoring. We have a great system and people in place. I don't even know at the state level if they've come up with appropriate levels. I think that if there are things we need to do, the city is well equipped, as well as the rest of the municipalities in the state, to take steps. But if there are tough decisions to be made, I'm sure we'll be asking the state for some assistance if there are big expenses to try to come into compliance.
Okay, thank you. Ellie?
Well, we have wonderful natural springs underground, and Heilemans is a testament of that for their brewery when they had their slogan of natural spring waters. I know that everyone's monitoring the situation in Campbell, town of Campbell, which is fabulous, and they've been getting the water supply. Agreeing with everyone so far on the panel that, no, I'm not an expert on water, and that's why we have people that monitor that. And I think we're very grateful and lucky that in La Crosse we don't have a situation. I know they just updated the water treatment systems. We do have other programs for environmental aspects to control for the erosion. I also feel that with natural disasters that have been around the country, it's always good to double check to see what our potential scenarios might be and if we're prepared for those.
Okay, thank you. Shaundel, your response.
I just want to take a second to appreciate the privilege of being able to have drinkable water, right? So let's acknowledge that. And also, as mayor, again, this is where you draw on the expertise of your staff, but you also go alongside them. So as mayor, you might have to go to the state and advocate for more money to come into the city, right, to ensure that we're making sure that our water stays clean. And as mayor, I'm ready to do that. In addition to it, I think you, again, beyond drawing on the expertise of our staff, there's also folks in this community who are well-versed in this research. You know, there's folks at UW-L that do research around water, as well as national research that is being done as well on solutions that we can be trying in our community to continue to stay safe.
Okay, thank you. Next question comes from Hope Kerwin. Hope.
The school district of La Crosse has faced declining enrollment and budget shortfalls and is now working to consolidate elementary schools. In what ways can the city best support La Crosse schools?
Am I next?
And next up is, that's your turn, Chris.
It is my turn. I'm keeping track. I think it's really important for the city of La Crosse to be a vibrant and welcoming community, and I think that will attract families and other residents here. Some of the things that we can do to be a welcoming and vibrant community is support our local businesses. They're the backbone of our community, and we need them to succeed for the city to thrive. Secondarily, we need housing and safe neighborhoods. We need all types of housing, affordable housing, townhouses, mixed middle housing. So we need adequate housing and making sure that the housing, the infill housing that we have fits the charm and character of the neighborhoods that it goes into so that it preserves the character of those neighborhoods. And then lastly, I think we need to focus on our quality of life here in La Crosse. Things like enhancing our parks, our pools, our libraries, and making sure that we celebrate the arts and culture, all create a vibrant community, and that will help the school district and the city attracting families and folks and keeping people here.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Ellie, your response.
The school system, well, we have some adjustments that are going on right now. I actually just recently saw the plans for the new school that's tentatively at the Hogan site, and it looks wonderful. It looks like they're working to merge that into the neighborhood nicely, so it's going to be accessible for everyone and have a lot of features available. Likewise, the State Road School looks like it's coming along with their plans to have a nice setup with the addition. Currently, right now, we're 11 students to one educator, and I think with the consolidation of the schools and kind of reorganization, we could potentially increase that there be 2 educators for 11 students, and I think that's a good ratio. Also, there's going to be a new greenhouse over at Central High School and a tech educational system. So all of these advancements, I think, will be very appealing to people considering the La Crosse area and add to the joy of living in this beautiful area.
Okay, thank you, Ellie. Shaundel, your
Well,
response.
as a former school board member, this has been something that I've been paying close attention to for some years now. I believe that with declining enrollment, there's an issue, right? Like there's a situation that we're facing and we're trying to figure out the best way to handle it. But I also think the real question is, how do we as a community advocate alongside other cities in this state to make sure that education is being funded fairly and appropriately? I think that's a really big thing, and that should really be the center of this question. The other piece for me is ensuring as mayor that the school district, the superintendents, even the chancellors and presidents at universities and institutions and colleges here at UWL have a shared vision of where we're going as a community. And I think that is something that we are lacking and something that we need to truly work on to ensure that when we're bringing families here to increase enrollment and the workforce and so on and so forth, that we're doing a great job by, again, building a community where everybody belongs.
All right, thank you. And then finally, Vicki, your response.
You know, I have a saying in my work with the North La Crosse Business Association that what's good for business is good for the neighborhoods and vice versa, and this is the same thing, right? What's good for the city of La Crosse is good for the schools, and what's good for the schools is good for the city of La Crosse. And so what does that mean? That these kids come home to their homes in the city of La Crosse, right? And so what's happening in their homes impacts what's happening in schools. What's happening in schools has an impact on their homes. And so we have to be working together with them. It concerns me that our population is declining and our outlying areas are growing. We can't continue to do that. We have to be focused on what's going to attract families to this area, and we have to be making the decisions that are going to back that. I'm concerned that we have people that will not even look at a home in the city of La Crosse when they are moving to this area because they see our property taxes and say, I won't even look at a house there. We have to be changing the perceptions of La Crosse. Obviously, schools are a big component of that. And so we have to be working together because it's a common problem.
Okay, thank you. And that brings us to our next question. And it does. And Todd, you're up.
Do you believe there's a need for the city to focus infrastructure updates on a specific type of infrastructure in upcoming budgets? And if so, what type needs the most attention?
All right, Ellie, you are.
Okay. Well, there's a lot of streets in the area that need to get repaired. Sidewalks as well. There's a lot of sidewalks that are in disarray that I think need to be addressed. When you're looking at other infrastructures, a lot of our city buildings are outdated and they need to be retrofitted or upgraded so they have proper environmental, savings for lighting or how it's heated, the HVAC system, to make sure that things are running efficiently, because those will all save tax dollars as well. When you're looking at the downtown area, I think, again, when we have the roads and thoroughways to bring people to the downtown area, that's important as well for small businesses. And looking at, right now we have the train system. I know they're updating the train depot, which will be wonderful, and have that second access for bringing people to the city. Also, looking at, I lost my train of thought. But anyways, I think basically working with what we have right now to make sure those are in great repair before we start adding additional things.
Okay, thank you. Next up, Shaundel.
So I think drawing on the climate action plan as well as the Plan 2040 is a good point here when we talk about infrastructure. Obviously, we want to make sure we have a variety of housing that fits everybody. We want to make sure that we're maintaining and keeping up with all of the structures and infrastructure that we have. And in addition to that, I think there also has to be some education to the community of what infrastructure belongs to who, right? What roads belong to the state versus the county versus the city, and what do we have to do as a community to advocate for those roads to be fixed? In addition to that, I believe that we have to continue with the plans that we have in place, right? Those plans have been researched. We've paid a lot of money for a lot of these plans that tend to just sit and collect dust. So we need to ensure that we're using the things that we're paying for very wisely and with fidelity.
All right, thank you. Vicki, your response.
So when you go door to door in the city of La Crosse, the number one infrastructure that people talk about are roads, right? It's right in front of them. It's what they see. Everybody hates potholes. Thank goodness this time we're not talking about La Crosse Street. But that's what people understand. What's really interesting that I just learned is there's actually a shortage of companies that are able to do the road work. So even if we set a goal, there aren't the companies able to meet our goal, which is unfortunate. And we, of course, have to be looking at all forms of infrastructure. You know, we just were on riding the bus, and I can, again, from workforce development, that bus system is critical to people that cannot afford cars or are not able to have cars. And so we have to make sure, if we are trying to make this a vibrant community, that everybody's able to get to work, able to get groceries, able to get to healthcare. So of course we have to be working on the bus system. There are avid bikers. Why would we not include them in the conversations? There's federal dollars that come with some of those bike projects. If they're done well, we all like them. And, kudos to trying to make our airport more vibrant and bring in another airline that just brings people from around the world into La Crosse. That's another key infrastructure piece.
Okay, thank you, Vicki. Chris.
As a council member who has worked on 6 city budgets now, I can tell you the difficulty of being able to fund all the projects that the people in the community want. And our aging infrastructure is a really important piece of that, and it is incredibly costly. And over the past 15 years, we have had nearly stagnant revenues from the state of Wisconsin to help cities. And because of that, we have budget shortfalls. And it is not just La Crosse, it is communities around the state. So what we really need to do, and as mayor, I would prioritize the critical infrastructures that really need fixing right now, and we really need to prioritize those so we don't have some major issues happening. And we also understand with climate change, the events that we've had, the weather events, are really causing issues, so we need to make sure that the stormwater is maintained and updated. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Now, we did go through one round of questions from our media panelists. This is round two. Allison, you're up.
According to city employees, recent studies have shown La Crosse needs to build at least 200 new housing units a year in order to keep up with demand. As mayor, what would you do in order to make this a reality while keeping prices affordable for residents?
And Shaundel, you are the first up on this one.
So, like I said, I think it's extremely important for us to explore housing, but in a variety of ways. We paid to have this plan and this evidence-based research come to us to say, here's what we suggest. Now, as a community, we have to explore, look at it, and say, what exactly can we really do? And does it fit the model of La Crosse that we want, right? And so, again, looking at the variety that we have in our communities, thinking about, I think city planning is doing a great job of doing redevelopment and providing funding, for renovations to current homes and current properties, while also exploring what land do we have that is buildable, what vacant buildings do we have that we can repurpose. And so I think continuing that work as mayor is extremely important, and I am dedicated to serving alongside the city planning, as well as the street department and all the other departments to ensure that we are making sure that we're sticking to the plans that we are paying to have here in La Crosse.
All right, thank you, Shaundel. Next up, Vicki.
Yeah, so I have worked with home builders and developers for 14 years. And what's interesting about the housing market right now is we just have so much pent-up demand and no supply, right? Simple supply and demand. And I just talked to a developer yesterday. I was just with the home builders yesterday, and I had asked them what needs to happen in the city of La Crosse, and they say they need to be easier to work with, honestly. We have a reputation of saying we're going to avoid the city of La Crosse because it's too hard for remodeling and for new home construction. So we have to be working on that. The second piece of this is when it's economics. So if you have 3,000 units that need to get built, what do you think they're going to build? They're going to build a massive structure. And so I said, how do we start to get single-family homes? And they say you're going to have to incentivize it because the economics are such that they will build a large building. If they can assemble it, they can put massive amounts of people. And so we all can agree. We want single-family homes, right? And so we have to get really creative. For example, throwing it out there, I know somebody from the Redevelopment Authority is in the room. Can we have the Redevelopment Authority do exactly what happened with River Point District, purchase the train headquarters and say this is how we're going to create some single-family homes in that parcel? Those are conversations we need to have in the city of La Crosse so that we can start to focus on single-family homes.
Wrap it up.
Yes, I'm sorry, I'm done. I'm done. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Lee. I did ask the city planning director to get me a spreadsheet of the housing that's coming online. I sit on the Economic Development, Community Development Committee, and we do approve a lot of different funding, incentives, TIDs, TIF for developers. And in the next 5 years, we will have over 2,200 new housing units coming online in the city of La Crosse. So where the study says we need them in 10 years, we will have them in 5 years. And that's just what we're seeing right now. And I know no one else has the luxury of seeing those things unless they dive into it. But being on that committee and serving, I do have that knowledge. But I think what I said in the beginning, what we need to make sure we do is when we do add that housing, we have that balance of affordability, and we make sure that that infill is sensitive to the neighborhood so that there isn't a disruption to the neighborhood and the character and charm of the neighborhood is maintained.
All right, thank you. And Ellie.
Well, as a real estate agent in town, I'm at the forefront of all of this. I deal with it daily. What I see is, first and foremost, there's 1,700 homes on the north side of La Crosse that are in the floodplain. FEMA is doing an analysis this year with the Army Corps of Engineers. It's vital for our state and federal representatives to push to make sure that those Evaluations are done correctly to improve the levees, get things fixed in that area. Some of those homes are on lot sizes that could, have 2 or 3 single-family homes or multi townhomes or duplexes. The Kmart location needs to be taken into consideration. That's been empty for a long time. I know they have, coming up this April, they have to make a determination. Of course, we're dealing right now with the cost of lumber and sheetrock from the fires and the flooding that we've had, so it's going to be a difficult time for somebody to look and make an investment and get a return on their investment. I think the housing that we have right now is very mixed, and it's fabulous. It's very creative for young people to come in and look. Zoning is going to be a big aspect as well. So I think all of those things together and everything that are in the docket, the future looks pretty good. And I actually was on that committee that did that housing. I was a subcommittee, so I was intricately involved in that analysis.
Okay, thank you. Our next question comes from Brad Williams at WIZM.
In recent years, a number of controversies have developed over neighbors of the city of La Crosse. Annexations have become controversial, and people are still concerned about whether they can get along with the city of La Crosse. How do you plan to work with the surrounding communities, and could you point to a program where you would like to see more cooperation?
And this time, Vicki, you are up first.
Yeah. So in my work in the past with Seven Rivers Alliance, that was the whole purpose of the organization, was how do we blur the boundaries, right? How do we look towards collective good? And so I have always had great working relationships with people that have different opinions than you do, but you're trying to work towards a common goal. And so you navigate it by just saying, we've got to find a win-win. There are agreements that are due, and we need to have those conversations, and they have been avoided. And so they're tough, but you have to approach them, and you have to just say, again, we know what you want, you know what we want, how do we reach a compromise in here? But we don't get anywhere by ignoring them, and there's some key ones coming up. So I think I'm out of time, so
All right,
yeah.
thank you. Chris?
All right, well, that is a tough question. I will just admit that. We do have some agreements that are just sitting on the shelf. And as a council member, we have not had updates for quite a while. I think what really needs to happen, and what we understand, is communication is so key to working with our partners, working with Shelby, working with Campbell. But what we need to know and we need to realize is that the city of La Crosse does need to protect its interests, and we need to make sure that if we are giving away water, that we're getting something in return, because we really have a limited space to expand, and we really need to be protecting the investments that the city of La Crosse has. But really being a good neighbor and collaborating and communication is, I think, how it starts.
Okay, thank you. Ellie, you're up.
Well, absolutely. A lot of the topics that we've already talked about branch out to all the neighboring cities that are on the outskirts of La Crosse. We are in this beautiful Cooley region, and it is very important that we all get along and work together. And my experience in a boardroom where you're arguing and fighting, but you want to get to a common solution, a compromise where it helps everyone, because there's people that live in Alaska and work in La Crosse and vice versa. So it's very important that the mayor is an ambassador for the city, goes out and meets and mingles with the other representatives in the area, so that we can all work for the greater good of this area, because it's going to bring new business and manufacturing. We have so much tourism that comes to La Crosse as well, and that will help in those other neighboring vicinities. So I feel that it's mainly communication and an open door policy.
Okay, thank you, Ellie. Shaundel?
So I think this is a great time to reiterate that this is why we need a city administrator. I think that when we look at the fact that some of these agreements have gone for years, right, unnoticed, untalked about, it's time for us to have those tough conversations. And we need a mayor that's able to go and have those tough conversations and bring all of these different surrounding areas together. And you have to be able to have time to do that. And so if the mayor's role is so robust that they're focusing on so many other things, this will get dropped. And this is why we are where we are at today. And we need to make sure whoever our next mayor is, me, would ensure that we work tirelessly to get those folks to the table to figure out what are the solutions, what are the win-wins, and where do we need to compromise. But also, let's not forget, La Crosse is the city, right? This is where all of the resources really, truly are. And so we also have to recognize that we might have to share things, and we also might have to gain things, and we also, have to figure out how do we win, but how do we also support our surrounding areas.
All right, thank you, Shaundel. That brings us to our next question from Chandler Brindley.
We received a release earlier this week from the city regarding the Ellie McLoone brush and waste site application now being live. I've spoke with members of the community that the city used to pick up brush and waste in trash bags from people's homes. Then it was the homeowners or property owners being responsible for hauling brush and waste to the site. Now the same La Crosse residents are having to pay $25 to dump. As a candidate for mayor, what are your thoughts on charging for a city amenity?
Okay, Chris, you are up first.
Okay, well, easy enough, because you can all look to see how I voted on that. As council member, I voted against charging the $25. It wasn't that I believed folks couldn't pay it, but I really thought that it should be part of the basic services that citizens receive for their tax dollars. As I stated earlier, the budget is very tight, and we have some really tough decisions that we need to make. And that was part of those tough decisions. I really did think, and again, if it comes up, I will vote again to have that service free and included in people's basic services.
Okay, thank you. Your response, Ellie.
I agree. I feel that that should be included and you should not be charged to bring the waste down to Ellie McLoone. I think it's an incentive too, so people will keep their yards nicely manicured and bring the waste down, and then there won't be any burning of items in your yard as well that could create pollution. So we want to monitor that for climate situations. But it's a nice convenience, and I think that that should have stayed, along with the large item pickup as well. Those are services that we have a population that is very conservative and frugal, and they like to have those services available. They'll take their peanut butter jar and use a spatula to get every little piece out there of the peanut butter, but it's an idea that they're paying these taxes and they want to have these services. They don't want things taken away, and those are ones that impact them directly.
Thank you. Shaundel.
I just want to take the time to acknowledge there's a lot of what I would consider to be contradictory conversations, right? We're saying we want more housing, we want to build 200 houses, but at the same time our population is declining, right? We want all these amenities, but our budget is extremely tight. And so at some point we have to come to the table and be realistic about what can we do and what do we need to do to bring more money into this city. So exploring the idea of what would a sales tax do to the city to ensure that we're building up our financial budget. Again, hiring a city administrator and figuring out what can we do to save money. Other surrounding cities have city administrators or city managers, and they've been working to help save money in those cities. And I think it's time for us to truly explore what that would look like in this city.
Okay, thank you, Shaundel. Vicki, your response.
I smirked because it's as if somebody looked at my social media post this morning, because I literally put that out there going, I have my opinions, but what do you all think? And it's been fascinating to see people weigh in. So I think what I'm hearing is people just feel nickel and dimed, right? Okay, $25 here, $25 there, no large item pickup. And it causes them to say, what are my taxpayer dollars paying for? And so I think it goes back to what kind of message are we sending to the people that live here? What's going to make them continue to want to stay here? And these are just irritations, right? There goes another thing, and there goes another thing. We have to be very mindful of that. Okay, so rather than just keep saying what everybody else said, here's the interesting thing about this. The interesting thing about it is it's a fee that's being charged if you use it, right? So rather than tax everybody for something, the interesting thing about it is it's like per use. Some people say, I don't care because I'm not going to use it. Others say, I'm fine with it. Others, again, it's an irritation. So the interesting, again, just to add another dimension to what everyone has said, is the interesting thing is a per use fee seems to be a little more palatable to people than just charging more in property taxes or, again, or just dropping it completely.
Okay. Chris? We should be, yes, your turn on this, isn't it?
No, I spoke first.
You did already. All right, I'm going to get this
You're gonna
right
say
here.
another time?
So our next question is coming from Hope Corwin, and we're getting close to the end of this round of 5. Hope, you're up.
There's currently a national conversation around whether local law enforcement should assist federal immigration officers. Should La Crosse police be involved in immigration enforcement?
And now, Ellie, you are up first.
Well, I think the key part of her question was federal immigration. So the city works for the state follows what the federal regulations are. So that's an interesting question. You know, I would say that whatever is dictated, we would need to follow that because federal funding could be removed from the city or held back. So as far as do we want to see that? No, but unfortunately that's, you know, you have to follow the chain of command, and that's what we've been talking about all evening, so.
All right. Thanks, Ellie. Shaundel, you're next.
As mayor, I will not use city resources to help the federal government on immigration. That's all I got to say.
Okay. Vicki, your response.
I'm gonna introduce my answer, if you will, by saying the stress we are putting our people through right now, right? I know there's somebody in this audience that works with these individuals all the time, and the stress that is happening for people that are here legally and are afraid of being swept up, right? Like, there's just so much emotional trauma that's happening around this. So I agree. There are individuals that are paid by the federal government to do this work. I don't think we should be using our city resources to do that.
Okay. Chris.
Well, I am going to echo the past two fellow candidates. And I also will state that our police force is short and it is strained. And I do not agree, and as mayor would not direct them to follow any federal immigration policy that they put in place. I think they would have to come in here and do it themselves.
Okay, thank you. So we're up to our final question from the media, and Todd, you're up next.
How would you hold city department heads accountable to meet your goals for the city, especially since at this time La Crosse does not have a city administrator?
Oh, next up is Shaundel.
I was like, is that me? So I think one thing that we haven't necessarily talked about as mayor is you also have to be able to manage people, right? And I have experience in managing people. I've served in multiple roles throughout the city where I manage people. And I think the big thing is when you talk about holding people accountable, you have to hold people accountable with care. You have to hold people accountable in the way that is supportive and not punitive. And as mayor, I would make sure that our staff, my staff, the directors, are really, truly doing what people need. And not just kind of, wandering off doing whatever, but making sure that we're serving our people because that's what we're supposed to do, but then also making sure that we're meeting deadlines and meeting the goals that we've set forth as a city and as a community.
Okay. Vicki.
I look at it like these would not be the mayor's goals. These are what the taxpayers want. These are what the city council members are hearing and bringing forward in the policy that they are creating. And so, yes, I think the mayor has some internal goals in terms of what they want in terms of delivery of services from the department heads and the staff. And honestly, everybody should always be mindful of how is this, what is the interaction like for the citizens that come into City Hall who don't know where to go or have never interacted with City Hall. But I want to make sure that when we're talking about goals, that it's coming up from the people through the city council to the mayor, and then the mayor is making sure that those department heads are delivering it in such a way that is beneficial, mindful, sensitive to the citizens that it is meant to benefit.
Okay, thank you, Vicki. Chris, you're next.
Well, as a member of the executive committee for the past 4 years, we do sit in on department head reviews, and so I have done that every year. I do have experience. We sit with the mayor. It goes on quite frequently. It's been a great learning experience, and so I think that I have that experience with that already, knowing what the goals that those department heads have set for themselves, and then reviewing that. And I think it is an important role of the mayor, and I'm ready to do that.
Thank you. And then finally, Ellie, your response.
Well, what I would do, since if there would not be a city administrator, is meet with all the department heads and look at what their business plan, what their goal is to achieve. And I think that has to be done on a quarterly basis so that you can see if there needs to be any changes done with the plan that's enacted. Also, again, having an open door policy and communication, making sure that it's not silo, that department heads are talking to each other so that they understand what's going on, make sure they're not duplicating any activities that they're doing. And then likewise, I agree with Vicki as far as having ease of access for the citizens to come in, to meet with any of their department heads if they have a question. It's nice that you have the little kiosks down on the first floor that people can go in and get services taken care of. But I think the key is to have the open door policy and be in front and out among the people.
Okay, thank you. And that concludes the questions that we have for this evening. And so now we go to closing statements from each of the candidates. And Vicki, you are up first.
Okay. So everybody's watching this, everybody's in the room here going, why pick one of us, right? So I'll just get to why me. So what you've heard from my background, it's well-rounded. I came here for media. Communications is a strength of mine. Obviously, one of our pain points is the housing industry, so I have those contacts, really want to use those to help the city of La Crosse. I have collaboration in my background. I understand how our economy works. Growing our tax base is critical to helping with our property taxes. And I also have been to Washington, D.C. talking about floodplains. I have been to the state. I have been obviously working with our local government as well. And here's the other thing I want to point out. Some of you remember, there were 10 of us sitting at a table here about 4 years ago. Of them, I'm the only one who is still active in our community. I am on the tourism board. I'm on the Economic Development Commission. I've helped our symphony, our Boys and Girls Club. Like, I love this community. I continue to give back. It doesn't matter if I'm in this position or not, although I hope I am. But that shows the passion that I have, the love I have for this community, and constantly trying to make it better. And so that's why I recommend that you support me for mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris, you're next.
All right, thank you again, Lee. And I just want to say, how much I respect my fellow candidates. We all have a love and appreciation for the city, and I think that shows tonight. Thank you, everyone, for being here. It shows that you're concerned and you care about the city as well. As mayor, and as I've done through my life in La Crosse, I really want to make sure to contribute and enhance the quality of life for all La Crosse residents. As I said, I think everyone deserves a safe neighborhood to live in. Strengthening our neighborhoods is one of my main priorities, and under that falls many things. It's my friend Sandy, who has a walker who can't get across Cass Street safely because of the traffic. There are a lot of safety issues, bike pedestrian issues. We need equity in our transportation system, and I want to just do a shout out to our transit system, as this week is Transit Equity Week, and we just had Transit Equity Day. And I think most of us were part of that, and I'm proud that we had that, and we do that every year, and thank you to the council that puts that on. So as far as being mayor, I have worked hard the last 6 years. I have been involved in my neighborhood and the community for the last 30. I'm ready and willing, and what I do is roll up my sleeves and do the hard work. This is not my comfortable place, but I'm willing to work hard for the citizens.
All right, thank you. Ellie, you are next for your response.
Well, thank you again for everyone that offered their questions, and again, all of the candidates here as well. Being fifth generation in La Crosse, I definitely have a deep love for the community, and I feel that my skill set is exactly what's needed at this time. We've heard several points of being a crisis, crossroad, and I bring a different set of eyes to look at things. I have the experience and an expert in real estate, so I can look at the housing situation, plot and plan, and work with developers to overcome some of the zoning and issues that are currently that they're dealing with. As a business developer, business development, I can work with small businesses to launch different types of ideas in the city, lure businesses from other locations to come to La Crosse, highlight the beauty of this area, looking at ways to offset and reduce the tax base. So I think just having a different perspective, coming in and looking at things with my skill set, as I mentioned, will be well-rounded, as well as working with the different department heads and being open just to hear what the citizens have to say and working together with our neighboring communities. And thank you very much, and I look forward to the primary, and I ask for your vote.
And thank you. And finally, let's hear from Shaundel.
So let me be clear, I chose to stay in La Crosse. When I moved here from Milwaukee, I came to UW-La for school. I received my bachelor's, my master's. I'm currently about to finish, have a turbo with a master's in mental health counseling. I chose to stay in this community. I could have went home and went back to Milwaukee, but I fell in love with this community. I thought as I did volunteer work, as I served in different positions, in fact, I even built a nonprofit from the ground up in this community to serve this community. I've done things where we've worked with business owners, we've worked with private organizations, we brought them together to solve issues in this community. And let me be very clear, I truly believe that La Crosse can be the exemplar city of this state and even this nation of what it truly means to be equitable, have equitable access to resources, to truly be a place where everyone feels safe, valued, respected, appreciated, and can grow and thrive in this community. So I'm asking you to vote for me for your next mayor of La Crosse. Thank you.
All right, well, let me just say this. Wow, okay? I have to say, I think we should be impressed with the 4 candidates, the quality of candidates that we have here. Let's show our appreciation. And a big thank you to our media sponsors and panelists here because of the work they've been doing. A great big shout out to the WIZM team for all of their coordination in today's event. Thank you. I also want to add, by the way, that there is a collaborative effort going on with the League of Women Voters of La Crosse, the La Crosse Area Chamber of Commerce, and LADCO, and they have agreed and made video interviews of our 4 candidates here. They're available on the websites of those 4 organizations as well as LeaderEthics. And I encourage you to check it out, or if someone missed this or wants to learn a little bit more, this is a great opportunity. I just want to say one other thing. When you have this kind of collaboration and interest, this makes a huge statement. It makes a huge statement that we really do care about the next generation leadership in our community. And I want to thank you for taking this step forward, and I wish you the best on February 18th. Best wishes to you. And thank you.